feel uncomfortable.
Right.
It makes me feel uncomfortable with my camera on with a bunch of kind of like strangers watching me. So
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I mean, I guess sort of last semester it suddenly became important, and so I sort of got used to it. It's hard for me to have the camera off, but I understand it is a weird thing. So I totally understand any discomfort anyone feels with that. So I'll record this, so if anyone wants information later about the syllabus, they can go back and look at this. But we'll talk about the structure of the course today, but my plan for most of the course is to be, I'll record, we won't have to meet at this specific time. I'll record lectures, I will make them available to all of you, and I will be here in a Zoom call that you are not required to attend if you don't want to, as sort of a ongoing office hours, if so anyone can ask about the lecture videos and the readings and the other material that's been posted or sent out to you.
thank you, Professor.
No problem. Let's see here. How many people do we have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so not quite everyone is here, but our class has only just now officially started. So we'll wait a few more minutes, see if some more people show up. I have a list of everyone who's supposed to be here, so let me just find that real quick. Here we go. All right. Let's see here. All right, so while I'm waiting to make sure everyone is here and knows how to get here, emails. Is everyone cool using the email that is listed on Blackboard, sort of your official Baruch email? Or does anyone prefer that I use a different email?
Yeah,
the Baruch email works fine for me.
If any of you, obviously, if you're here, that means that you at least can receive email, which is good. The problem is, if anyone, for some reason, can't receive email from their Baruch email address, usually on the first day of class, I find that out because they showed up still. But the nature of meeting online is there might be people who just didn't get the email, and I don't have like a personal address I can send old-timey paper mail to, so I'm not sure what one does.
Yeah,
in that
I
situation.
got an email to my high school email, so
Yeah,
yeah.
well, that's odd. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to request if any of you want to use an email that is different than the one I sent the Zoom invite to. If you want to use a different email than that one, please email me at the email address I used. So either the brian.porter@baruch.cuny.edu or the bporter@gradcenter.cuny.edu. Either of those email addresses work. They both go to the same inbox. I get the same alert on my phone no matter which one you use, etc. So email me, let me know that you want to use a different email address, and then I'll know, and we should be able to get everyone using the email addresses that they want to use that works best for them, etc. Because I'll just be sending emails straight out of my normal email address. I've tried using the Baruch email, not the Baruch email, the Blackboard email thing before, and every single semester, a handful of students never get a single email from Blackboard. And so I'm trying to avoid that now that email and internet contact is way more important than it usually is most semesters. So let me see. I think, is everyone here now? How do we, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right. So not quite everyone is here yet, but that's okay. We'll get started. It's being recorded, so it should be okay. So I am going to share my screen now so we can look at the syllabus together. All right, cool. So can everyone see the syllabus? Everyone sees my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Professor.
Cool. All right. Good. So, welcome to Philosophy 1500, Major Issues in Philosophy. Ordinarily, I ask if everyone is here for that class, and I make the same joke every year that if 1 or 2 of you say you're not here for that, that means you're in the wrong room. But if all of you say you're here for a different class, that means I'm in the wrong room. But now it's a Zoom call, so I can't really make that joke anymore. But our class is going to be about philosophy. It's basically introduction to philosophy. I don't know why it's called major issues instead of introduction. It's basically introduction to philosophy. So our official our official course meeting time is Tuesday and Thursday, 9:05 to 10:20 a.m. I don't know why it's 9:05. Zoom wouldn't even let me do a 9:05 start time because it assumes that no one could possibly want a start time other than like 9, 9:15, 9:30. But we're 9:05 to 10:20. My name is Brian Porter. I will be your professor, teacher, instructor, whatever term you want to use for the course. Feel free to call me Brian or Porter or Professor Porter, Mr. Porter, whatever makes you most comfortable. As long as I know that you're trying to refer to me, I'm fine with it. And so on the syllabus, you'll see my 2 email addresses, bporter@gradcenter.cuny.edu and brian.porter@baruch.cuny.edu. All sort of information, all resources that I want you to have, I will both post on Blackboard and I will email it out to you from one of these 2 email addresses. Somewhere inside my phone is a little coin that gets flipped to decide which email it comes from. I'm not sure why or how the phone chooses whether it's sent from the Grad Center or the Baruch email address, but it's the same inbox. The structure for our course is going to be mostly asynchronous, meaning we don't have to be in the same place at the same time. So I asked the chair of my department if I did synchronous or if I did asynchronous as the official designation on CUNY first, if we could still meet in person on the first day and I had the option of hosting review sessions before assignments were due. And I was told no. Even if we only meet in person at a synchronous time exactly once, it still has to be a synchronous course. So that's why it's listed as synchronous on CUNY first. So if you were really excited about the prospect of a Zoom call at exactly 9:05 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, then I'm sorry. That won't be sort of our standard. But I'm assuming no one's that hard set on a Zoom call at exactly 9:05 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So hopefully that's something resembling good news for at least some of you, that you don't have to be on a Zoom call during those exact hours twice a week, every week for the rest of the semester. However, I will be available. I will set up a Zoom meeting and I will be here Tuesdays 9:05 to 10:20. If you have any questions about anything, if you have any confusion about anything, if you want more information, I will be here. I'll have the link available. You'll be able to access it. You will not be required to go to that. Think of it like office hours. So you don't have to go. It won't affect your grade. But if you want more information, I will be available. And, of course, you can email me at any point, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So, first things first, what is this course about? So the course is about philosophy, and philosophy is a really broad topic. So as far as I know, every culture, every society since the dawn of civilization has engaged in philosophy. So there's a lot of philosophy out there in the history of philosophy. And we're mostly going to focus on relatively recent debates in English language academic philosophy because, well, the course takes place in English and translated work is often harder to parse. If any of you have ever tried to read Immanuel Kant, it's translated from German and it shows. It's a struggle. It's not clear at all. We will read about Kant's views, but we will not read Kant himself, because that is fate that only people who choose philosophy as a career deserve to have to face. So, philosophy is mostly, I say on the course description, philosophy is mostly a methodology. What I mean by that is that philosophy is more or less a set of tools for reasoning and thinking through sort of foundational issues. So there are lots of areas in philosophy. We'll talk about some of the main ones. We'll talk about ethics, which is the philosophy of what you ought to do, ought not to do. We'll talk about epistemology, which is philosophy of knowledge, when you know something, when you don't, what we do or don't or can or can't have knowledge of. We'll talk a little bit about metaphysics, like whether or not God exists, whether or not the mind is a physical thing, stuff like that. But philosophy can be applied almost anywhere. So there is philosophy of law, philosophy of math, philosophy of language, philosophy of art, philosophy of archaeology. Pick a noun, there is philosophy of that noun, probably somewhere that someone has published on. Because everything has foundational issues. There are always questions that you can ask about what we really mean by a concept, what we really mean by the word art, what numbers really are. Numbers exist. Math isn't a matter of opinion, but you can't go out and touch numbers. They're not physical things. So what's a number? That's a real question that is surprisingly difficult to answer. I mean, just as an exercise later, feel free to try to come up with an answer to what numbers are, and it's kind of tricky. We're not going to worry about what numbers are in philosophy of math. That stuff is complicated. And then you have to learn set theory, and it's a whole thing. So we're going to focus on questions like, does God exist? What does it mean to be a good person? What are minds? What is a mind? Do we have knowledge of the world around us? Some people, maybe surprisingly, will say no. And we'll look at why they say no, and then we'll look at some responses to that to try to prove that we do have knowledge of the world around us. And sort of these sorts of topics that I'm hoping are slightly more interesting than sort of the really dry and boring stuff that you can sometimes get when you do like philosophy of math, philosophy of law, that can get really technical. Now, quick, I don't know if this is a side note or just a warning, but I'm going to do my best to make this course not be painful and weird and confusing. And not all philosophy courses meet that metric, apparently. So I have chosen philosophy and teaching philosophy as a career, obviously. That's why I'm here. But the first time I heard the word philosophy was when my mother, who is totally fine with my career choice, just want to say that before the story starts, when she complained about how philosophy is terrible and she hates it and it's dumb, because when she was in college, she took an intro philosophy course, just like this one, and according to her, on the first day of the course, the professor pointed at a desk and said, "What's that?" And the student said, "A desk." And the professor said, "How do you know it's a desk? How do you know it's not a pink elephant?" And all the students went, "What?" Ugh. And then apparently it got worse from there. That's not what I want. I don't want this course to be at all like that. My sort of bare minimum, lowest bar goal for this course is that none of you complain to your children about this class 30 years from now. That's what I'm hoping to reach. That's the minimum level. And not all philosophy classes meet that bar, apparently, but that's what we're trying to reach here. So if at any point you feel like the course is so confusing and dumb and painful that you feel like you're going to complain to your children about it in 30 years, let me know and we'll make some adjustments and we'll change some things up and we'll try to fix that situation. Because I understand what philosophical point the professor was trying to make in that story. I just hope that we can get at that point a little less irritatingly, if that's the phrase I want. So, assuming that we can meet that goal, the learning goals for this course, what I want you to learn out of this course, sort of a mix of information and skills. So, information, I want you to leave the course with a basic understanding of some of the major issues in philosophy, some of the major sort of topics, debates, questions in philosophy, and some of the views, the arguments, some of the views that one might have. So I don't want you to just leave knowing that there's a question about whether or not God exists. I want you to leave knowing some of the arguments for the claim that God does exist and some of the arguments for the claim that God does not exist. I don't just want you to leave the course knowing that some people aren't sure what is and isn't ethical. I want you to leave with a basic understanding of some of the major views on the table, some of the answers to the question, what is the right thing to do? What does it mean to be a good person? But in addition to that information, I also want us to learn and practice and work on developing some basic skills. Philosophy is really good for learning what I think on resumes are called soft skills. I went into academia mostly to avoid having to worry about resumes and real world jobs, so I'm not 100% sure that's true, but that's what I've been told. Soft skills, things like critical reasoning, analytic writing, the ability to analyze a problem and critique an argument. Those sorts of things that they won't get you a job, but once you have a job, you'll be better at it if you can sort of master these skills. And they are useful in different ways. If any of you have ever considered being a lawyer and looked at the LSAT, the LSAT's basically a 4-hour test on informal logic. And there's no better place to learn informal logic than philosophy. So there are sort of skills about critiquing and analyzing arguments and making arguments that I want us to practice and to master. And in order to do that, the course is divided up into 2 kinds of assignments that we'll talk about in a second. First, just to reiterate what I said earlier, I know the course is listed as synchronous, meaning that we meet at the same time and have to be at the same place, but that's not really how the course is going to run most of the time. So today, I wanted us all to be in the same place at the same time, but in the future, for the majority of the rest of the course, I'm going to post lecture videos. I'm going to give you lecture notes. I'm going to give you PowerPoint slides. I'll send out readings and try to give you the resources that you would get in an in-person lecture, but make them available so you can go through them on your own time, more or less at your own pace, sort of when it's convenient for you. Because I know internet can be unreliable, and I think it's better if we all sort of can look at the material on our own time when it's convenient for us. There will be occasions when we meet during our scheduled class time. For example, right now, and I might do, we're about to talk about unit assignments. I might do in-person review sessions for the unit assignments, which attendance will not be required, but it won't quite be just a normal office hour. So it counts as a synchronous, we all need to meet at the same time event. But attendance and that kind of thing will not be part of your grade. Attendance is in no way part of your grade for this course. I never loved that attendance had to be part of the grade for in-person courses. I mean, if you're sick or getting surgery or something and you miss a bunch of class, you shouldn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to pass that class. But that's not the point. That's a side issue. We're not going to worry about that. So attendance is not part of your grade. Your whole grade for this course will be divided into two categories: weekly assignments, which count for 40% of the grade, and unit assignments, which count for 60% of the grade. And so I said earlier that I had two primary learning goals for the course: learning philosophical skills and learning philosophical information, basically. Learning philosophical skills, in order to do that, we're going to have weekly assignments, where basically most weeks, not all weeks, but most weeks, there will be a small assignment. Think like 150, 200 words of writing, right? So not very long, sort of like a medium length email, basically. Because brevity is important. Being able to write concisely and to make a point quickly and in few words is a very useful skill that everyone should practice. And so in the weekly assignments, I want you to practice that. So these assignments are going to give you opportunities to engage critically with the work. So one week it might be to critique an argument. Another week it might be to make an argument for a view, to pick a stance, and in 200 words or less, defend that stance, defend that answer to a philosophical question, to get practice sort of trying to defend answers, to come up with justifications for beliefs, to make sure that our beliefs are justified and well supported, and that we're actually thinking carefully and critically about what we believe and what answers we give to questions and things like that. So there will be 10 assignments given out through the semester, graded on a scale of 1 to 5. And I'll send out a rubric with each assignment. And your weekly assignments grade, which is 40% of your grade for the course, will be determined by your 8 best weekly assignment grades. So if you miss one, that's no big deal. It won't hurt your grade. If you miss 2, it won't hurt your grade. And if there's a typo here, it says if you're happy with your grade on the first 10, then you don't have to turn in any more. They're only going to be 10, so that's a weird sentence. That's supposed to say 8, and I'll edit that later before I'll edit it and repost it on Blackboard, new version. But that's supposed to say 8. So if you're happy with your grade on the first 8 assignments that you submit, you don't have to turn in the rest. It's up to you. You don't have to. It won't affect your grade unless you get a higher score than you did on previous ones. So those are the weekly assignments. They shouldn't take a ton of time, but they should give you an opportunity to sort of think critically about arguments and practice analyzing arguments and views and answers to questions. So that's 40% of your grade. The other 60% is going to be unit assignments. And the unit assignments are, think of them sort of like take-home tests. So the course is divided into 4 units. Unit 1 is arguments and analysis, sort of like a logic, arguments, thought experiments, how does philosophy work kind of section. Then there's ethics, which is morality, what we should and should not do, what we ought to do, what we ought not to do. Then there's a metaphysics unit, which is sort of about what exists, what things are like. So whether or not God exists, whether or not the mind is a physical thing, whether or not you would survive if your brain was removed and put into a different body. Those are metaphysics questions that we'll ask. And then Unit 4 is epistemology, which is just a fancy word for knowledge. So what is knowledge? Do we have knowledge of the external world? When is a belief justified? Etc. And each of these 4 units will have a corresponding unit assignment, which is basically going to be a big take-home test. It's not that big. You could knock it out in an hour if you tried or if you wanted to. Maybe less than that. So there'll be some multiple choice questions, some short answer questions, a couple long answer questions on each unit assignment. And you'll have, once the unit assignment is sent out, I will make it available to all of you at the end of the unit, and then you'll have 2 weeks to complete it. And the unit assignment for Unit 4, which there's another typo here I see, Unit 4, which doesn't have any units following it because it's the last one, that'll just be due at the end of the semester when our final would be due, which I think is the 17th. So the unit assignments will be sent out to you by email. I'll make them available on Blackboard. And they need to be completed and submitted by midnight, the night of the due date. So 11:59 p.m. on whatever day it says it's due on the schedule. They'll all be graded on a standard A, B, C, D, F scale. 93 to 100 is an A, 90 to 92 is an A minus, etc. And each unit assignment will account for 15% of the grade. So all 4 unit assignments together total 60% of the grade. And if you are not happy with your grade on a unit assignment, then you can submit corrections to it. You can submit new answers to try to get half credit back. So if you resubmit a unit assignment, you will get back half credit for each correct answer. So if you get an 80, that can become a 90, 64 can become an 82, a 50 can become a 75, etc. The exception to this is Unit 4, which is due at the end of the semester, and so there isn't time to resubmit it, which is unfortunate, and I'm not sure what to do about that, but maybe that's just life. So most of the unit assignments, you'll be able to resubmit and get half credit back, because it always seemed kind of dumb that if you take a test, that means you just found out what it is you don't understand yet, and then everyone moves on, and then that's it. And that's a bad system. So you're going to have a chance to resubmit and get partial credit back so that you can learn whatever it is you didn't know at the time the unit assignment was due. So if you submit unit assignments late, just sort of unannounced, comes in a day late or so, there'll be a point deduction. So 5 points per day will be deducted for late assignments, unless there's a valid reason. If you tell me ahead of time, hey, I'm sick, or hey, I'm about to go spend 2 weeks in the woods and I won't have internet access, or whatever, let me know and I'll be happy to grant an extension. If you let me know what's going to happen ahead of time, I try to be very understanding, and I try to be pretty loose and generous with the extensions and whatnot, but I need to know about that. Just turning it in a week late without any explanation, not as good as telling me ahead of time that this is happening or that you need an extension for some reason. Now, are there any questions about the weekly assignments or the unit assignments or anything we've talked about in the syllabus so far? All right, I will take that as a no. So Required texts. There are none. There are no textbooks for this course. There will be readings. I will email them to you and I'll put them on Blackboard. But there's no textbook. There's nothing you have to buy. There's nothing you have to pay for. I do highly recommend the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It's a website. It's plato.stanford.edu. If you're confused or you're not sure what something means, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy can be really helpful, and it's really thorough, which means sometimes it gets way too complicated, but the intro sections are usually pretty clear and straightforward, I think. There are some points in the course where we will be reading from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. But even if it's not assigned, if you're confused about a topic, I encourage you to search the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. You'll probably find something useful in there. So, a couple class policies, real quick. I reserve the right to make changes to the syllabus as needed. If I need to, delay a due date or something, I reserve the right to do that. If I decide that we didn't cover dualism or physicalism in enough detail, then I reserve the right to spend another day or two on that just to make sure we're all on board. Also, if you have any questions at any point, you are encouraged to email me to ask them. But please let me know that it's an email from course so I know to make it a higher priority than other emails. And give me 24 hours to respond. If you email me at 4 a.m. One night and I don't respond within an hour, that's life. So give me a day to respond, because who knows? Sometimes I have to, drive between states in the middle of the day, and I'm not going to email while driving. That's no better than texting while driving. I don't want to die on a highway. Now, last course policy: students with disabilities may be eligible for reasonable accommodation to enable them to fully participate in the course. If you need any sort of accommodation, let me know, or contact the Office of Services for Students with Disabilities, and we will get you accommodated to make sure that everyone can participate in the course and, get as much out of it as any of us possibly can. Now, academic integrity. The philosophy department, and Baruch University, and the City University of New York system as a whole will not tolerate academic dishonesty. We do not like it. So that's no cheating, no plagiarism, no forgery. I don't think you need to sign any forms, so I'm not sure why forgery is on the list. But no forgery is a good policy in life in general. No collusion and dishonest acts. So if you give your answers to someone else for them to copy them, you didn't plagiarize, but you colluded in the act of plagiarism. So helping someone else cheat is still academically dishonest. So you're expected not to cheat. I am not a fan of cheating. In conversation with colleagues, my view on cheating and plagiarism was once described as unnecessarily draconian, which probably maybe should work on. But the point is, not a fan of cheating and plagiarism. So cheating is copying another student's work, or allowing someone else to copy your work, working together when I said you couldn't, using outside sources that were not approved to answer questions during exams. We don't have in-person exams, but unit assignments, I will tell you what resources you can and can't use. And using resources that were not approved, like, for example, just Googling the question on the assignment and copying the answer you get off Google, that's cheating. That's bad. Plagiarism is presenting someone else's ideas, research, or writing as your own, which means if you copy answers from the internet, that's plagiarism and you'll fail the assignment. If you copy answers from someone else in the class, that's plagiarism, you'll fail the assignment. If you use information not considered common knowledge without acknowledging the source, that's plagiarism. Which, just to be clear, I have it every semester. There are some people who are surprised about this fact. So it's in bold and it's underlined on the syllabus, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Paraphrasing answers that you find on Google is a form of plagiarism. Even if you reword it, you did not come up with the answer yourself, and so that is cheating and will be treated as such. So if there's a unit assignment, for example, and the unit assignment has the question, what is phenomenal consciousness? If you Google the words phenomenal consciousness philosophy, and the first result is phenomenal consciousness is a form of state consciousness, that's, first of all, that's not the right answer. But second of all, if you take that and just switch is to happens to be and switch form to type, so now it says phenomenal consciousness happens to be a type of state consciousness, that is still plagiarism. I mean, the jargon that we're not going to talk about is a bit of a dead giveaway. Just being honest there. If you use jargon that we didn't talk about, either you did a ton of extra work or you plagiarized, and I'll figure out which. But paraphrasing answers off Google is a form of plagiarism, just to make sure we're all clear on that. Now, all right. And if you plagiarize or cheat on any of the assignments, you will fail the assignment. You will not be able to resubmit it. And that's going to have a hefty impact on how you do in the course, grade-wise. And multiple incidents of plagiarism will result in failing the course. So if one on a unit assignment or on a weekly assignment, you fail the assignment. If there's a second one, you fail the course. So, no cheating, no plagiarism. I've never met a professor that was on board with cheating and plagiarism, but we still need to talk about it every semester because it has to be on the syllabus. Otherwise, they tell me I need to put it on the syllabus. So, no cheating, no plagiarism. Now, oh yeah, and there's a website that's here if you're confused about any of it for Brooks policy. You can go read it. Now, we don't need to go through the course schedule day by day, probably, but here's the basic schedule that our course is going to follow. Today, meet and greet, we're already here. We know what's happening. So Unit 1 is about arguments and analysis. So next week, we're going to read through some thought experiments, and I'll send those out. The Pig That Wants to Be Eaten PDF is already on Blackboard. If anyone wants to look through it, I'll send out the specific ones that I want you to read next week. So we'll go through some thought experiments. Hopefully you find at least some of them interesting. Then we'll talk about arguments, what they are. And then we'll talk about fallacies and cognitive biases, bad arguments that our brains make because our brains are designed to not get murdered in the wild, not to make very intricate, argumentative moves perfectly accurately all the time. So we have cognitive biases that we need to be aware of and we need to try to counteract. And once we get a firm grasp on how thought experiments work, how arguments work, what fallacies and biases to avoid, then we start applying it. So we'll talk about ethics. That's Unit 2. Trolley problem, which is a thought experiment that I'm guessing some but not all of you have heard of, because that seems to be what happens most semesters. I think it's the most famous philosophical thought experiment because my grandmother asked me about it, and if she's 82 and finding out about 20th century philosophical thought experiments, I assume it's pretty easy to find out about it. I assume it's sort of vaguely common knowledge. Not fully common knowledge, but kind of common-ish knowledge. So we'll talk about the trolley problem, then Kantianism, utilitarianism, some major views in ethics, morality and charity, where we'll read an argument that says basically every single dollar that you don't spend on essentials has to be donated, otherwise it's morally wrong. Just a strong claim. So we'll look at the argument, see if it holds water, if we think it's right, where any errors might be. And then we'll talk about relativism and realism, and also nihilism. So we'll ask, are there moral truths at all? Is it all a matter of opinion? Is it relative to a society? Where does morality come from? Etc. Then we move into metaphysics. We ask, does God exist? We talk about personal identity, which is what does it mean for you to exist over time? In virtue of what, are you the same person as the baby that you share no molecules with? All your atoms got replaced by now. You have no memories of being the baby. So in virtue of what, are you that baby? And if we split your brain in half and put half into one body, half into another body, are you two people now? Are you no people? Did you cease to exist? That kind of stuff, which it's all going to be sort of weird sci-fi hypothetical scenarios, but it's going to be getting at the point of figuring out what we actually are. Are we just physical bodies? Are we minds? Are we a bundle of memories? What are we? What is a person? And then we'll get to the question, moving from there pretty quickly to, is the mind a physical thing? What is the mind? Is the mind just the brain, or are they different somehow? And then we'll talk about epistemology. We'll move on from metaphysics and talk about epistemology in November, where we'll talk about skepticism, which there are some arguments from people who think that we have no knowledge about the external world. None. Nothing. You have unjustified beliefs about the world around you, and that's it, which is a strong claim. So we'll look at those arguments. We'll look at a response that attempts to prove that there is an external world, prove that we have knowledge of the external world. And then we'll sort of step back a bit and get a little more abstract and ask what knowledge is. What is knowledge? What does it mean to know something? And then the last week of the course, which isn't really part of any of the units, but I think is interesting and worth doing, we'll spend a week on bullshit, which is a profane term. It's a curse word. So if you're offended by that, I apologize. But that is the technical term used in philosophy for bullshit. And I think it's interesting as a topic because bullshit's sort of a concept that we're all familiar with. And it seems kind of funny to talk about. But Harry Frankfurt, which is the person we'll be reading, has a rigorous philosophical analysis of bullshit, trying to investigate what is bullshit. How is bullshit different than lying or other kinds of sort of falsehood and misdirection? So it's going to sort of apply the philosophical conceptual analysis type of skills that we've spent the semester learning about and apply it to bullshit, which is just kind of a fun, I think, kind of a fun topic to try to apply these skills to. And then at the end of the semester, the last unit assignment will be due, and all of the weekly assignments will have been due, and then the course will be over. All right. So that's the plan for the course. Does anyone have any questions? All right. In that case, briefly want to move to the Blackboard page. So hopefully by now, right now, everyone should have access to our course Blackboard page. If you do not, please let me know as soon as you find out that you do not. But everyone should have access to it. So there's not, I'll go to student preview mode so we can all look at what you'll be looking at. Right, so there are no announcements there, but there's a syllabus. You can click the syllabus, and then there are course documents. So Blackboard has never worked well for me when I try to use it to communicate, but it has worked pretty well as sort of a resource database. And so that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a resource database. So the syllabus will be there, and I will keep an updated syllabus there, and readings will be there. I will have PDFs of readings, sometimes Word docs, just depending on what is convenient for the particular reading, and links to web page readings. So some of our readings are going to be web pages. For example, in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about arguments. All of the 3 prior readings are just on Jim Pryor's website. Jim Pryor's a philosophy professor at NYU. His website has some really good introduction stuff on what arguments are, so we're going to look at that. So I'll put up links to that here, and this is where all your readings will be. And I'll also send everything out by email, which is why it's important that I have a working email for everybody. I want you to get my emails so that you don't have to just obsessively check Blackboard every day. Ooh, maybe there's something new now. I'll email you and let you know and attach things to the emails and send it all as email attachments. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Cool. So that's sort of how the course is going to work. That's how the grading is going to work. I'll upload YouTube lectures. That's probably what I'm going to do lecture-wise. It worked well last semester when I tried it, so we're going to try it this semester. I will send out a link to a YouTube page. The account is, I think, B Porter Phil or something. I'll send out that link, and you can look at the lecture videos that I upload. YouTube works pretty much on all devices, I think, so it's pretty convenient in that way. The videos won't be very long. Instead of uploading like an hour and 20-minute lecture, I'll upload like a 5-10 minute video on hypothetical imperatives, a 5-10 minute video on categorical imperatives, rather than a huge long like 40-minute to an hour video about Kantianism and hypothetical and categorical imperatives. And if at any point in the semester you don't understand something, let me know, and I will do my best to explain it in writing, on Zoom, on YouTube, however it works best to explain it. So, are there any questions?
Professor,
Yes.
the philosophy course is not on my Blackboard.
Oh. Huh.
Yes, so if you're on Blackboard, you have to go on the main page and scroll all the way down. It's at the bottom left, and you have to click on the course. I had to do that this morning because it wasn't showing up for me either.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Cool. Good, because I did not know how to solve that problem. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, because I also sent out an email because I wasn't seeing mine, and when I checked, it was all the way at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things about moving online is that by default, we all have to rely on Blackboard more. And Blackboard is super finicky and inconsistent, at least in my experience. So sometimes it shows up when you want it to, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get the message or the announcement, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it won't let me upload a PDF. Sometimes it will. I don't know why Blackboard is the way it is, but if you ever have a problem with Blackboard, that's why we have email. So if you have a problem with Blackboard, you can't get on to Blackboard, you can't access it, let me know, send me an email, and I will send you whatever you were trying to get out of Blackboard. And hopefully that way we'll all have all the resources we need to succeed and have a good, fun time in the course. All right. Are there any other questions?
Not as yet. As we go into the course, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. So it'd be awfully early, you know, to have, I guess, questions about philosophy or metaphysics or anything. But, you know, if we're all sort of, all I really wanted to accomplish today was to make sure that we all received the email to come to the Zoom link, which means the emails work, and go through the syllabus together, go through the structure of the course together, and all that. So if there are no more questions, anyone? All right. If you do have a question, if you come up with something, please email me, let me know, and I will do my best to answer your question as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. Before we go, one last thing I want to say. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Right. I don't promise that every topic we cover will be interesting, but my hope is that at least one topic is interesting to each of you. So even if you don't find everything interesting in this course, I wouldn't if I was a student, probably. Hopefully each of you finds something that you find interesting. But at the end of the course, if you don't, please let me know, because the course is partly designed in the hopes that everyone will find something interesting. So if you don't, at the end of the course, I mean, if you want to send it anonymously, you can, but you don't have to. Please let me know if you thought every topic was painful and boring, because then I'm going to try to switch it up and try to branch out more and find something that everyone can enjoy and like and find interesting. All right. Now, if there are no further questions, that's all I have for today. I will send out syllabus and PDF for readings for next week. And let me know if you have any questions. All right. Other than that, goodbye. Enjoy your semester. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Have a
Thank you,
good one.
Professor.
All right. Have a good one.